Imagine a world where a high school graduate, with no specialized skills, could walk into a factory, get a job, buy a 3-bedroom house, 2 cars, and put 3 kids through college, all on a single salary of $5,000 a year. It sounds like a fairy tale, doesn't it? But for your grandfather, this wasn't science fiction. It was Tuesday, footage of young people staring at 7% morgue. Now, look at your reality. You've done everything they told you to do. You got the degree. You took the $50,000 debt. You worked 60-hour weeks. And yet, the median home price in America has surged over 500% since the 80s, while your wages have moved like a snail on a treadmill. Every time you save $1, the goalpost moves 10 miles further. They tell you it's supply and demand. They tell you it's unlucky timing. They're lying. Tonight, we aren't just looking at real estate. We are investigating a 100-year financial heist. From secret island meetings in 1913 to the corporate takeover of your neighborhood in 2026. This is the story of how your future was turned into a subscription service. This is why you might be the last person in your bloodline to ever hold a house key. C.J. Cole Island Conspiracy. To understand the trap, we have to go back to a cold night in November 1910. A private train car left New Jersey under total secrecy. The passengers were instructed not to use their last names. Their destination? Jekyll Island. These were the representatives of the Rockefellers, the Morgans, and the Rothschilds. They didn't go there for a vacation. They went there to build a machine that would later be called the Federal Reserve. They created a system where money is born out of debt. Think about that. If every debt in the world were paid off today, not a single dollar would exist in the system. Your currency is literally a IOUs. By designing a system that requires constant inflation to survive, they ensured that real assets, like the land under your feet, would eventually become unaffordable for anyone who actually works for a living. 1971, Faith Deeth OF Mini. For decades, the dollar was anchored to gold. It was real. It was honest. But in 1971, the US government had a problem. They were broke from the Vietnam War. So, Richard Nixon did the unthinkable. He severed the link between the dollar and gold. He promised it was temporary. It's been 55 years. Look at this chart. This is the exact moment the American middle class was executed. Before 1971, as workers became more productive, they got paid more. After 1971, productivity kept soaring, but wages stayed flat. Where did that extra money go? It went into the assets of those who own the printers. You can print paper, but you can't print land. This created a massive vacuum where the rich used fake money to buy up real earth, while your savings melted like an ice cube in the sun. ATC. AANTILLONE effect. ATC elite cheat code. There is a term in economics you were never taught in school. The Canyon effect. It's the ultimate insider secret. It states that the closer you are to the money printer, the richer you get. When the Fed prints trillions, it doesn't go to your local credit union. It goes to Wall Street. They get that money at near 0% interest. They use that free money to outbid you on a 3-bedroom house in the suburbs before you even get a Zillow notification. You aren't competing with another family. You are competing with a multi-billion-dollar algorithm that doesn't need a backyard. It only needs a yield for its shareholders. They Deeth Pillage, Anthi created Score Tap. But how did they get you to buy into this? They gave you a scoreboard. In 1989, the credit score was pushed into the mainstream. Suddenly, your worth as a human was tied to how much debt you could carry. They sold you the 30-year mortgage as the American dream. But look at the word. Mortgage comes from the old French mortgage. It literally translates to death pledge. It is a 30-year vow of service to a bank. They don't want you to own a home. They want you to own a debt that keeps you trapped in a job you hate just to keep the lights on. 80 subscription futur. We are entering the subscription era. Software as a service, transportation as a service, and now, shelter as a service. Firms like BlackRock are projected to own 40% of all single-family rental homes by 2030. They want to turn America into a nation of renters for life. Why? Because when you own nothing, you have no leverage. You are a serf in a digital feudal system, paying tribute to a corporate landlord who raises your rent by 10% every year because an algorithm told them to. AT, KD, ending. AT called TO Revolutium. So, is it over? Is the American dream dead? History shows us that every time a society reaches this level of inequality, from the Roman Empire to pre-revolutionary France, something breaks. We are at that inflection point. The trap only works if you keep your head down and keep running. But once you see the gears of the machine, you can't unsee them. This isn't just about real estate. It's about who owns the future. Will it be the people or will it be the algorithms? If this video made you angry, good. Anger is the first step toward waking up. 2025 D-beat spiral. Basic point, OF no return. As we stand here in 2026, the engine is finally seizing up. US national debt is no longer just a number on a screen. It is a mathematical certainty of collapse. We are now spending more on interest payments than on our own military. Think about that. Your tax dollars aren't going to roads, schools, or healthcare. They are going to pay the interest on the money we already spent. This is what economists call a debt spiral. To keep the system from crashing, the Fed has only one move left: print more. But this time, it's different. In the 1970s, we had a young population and a manufacturing base. Today, we have an aging population and a service economy built on credit cards. The housing market isn't just expensive anymore. It has become the only place left for big money to hide from the dying dollar. When the currency fails, the land remains. That is why they are pushing you out. They are trading their paper for your dirt. See CBDC and the final control. But how do they manage a population that can no longer afford to live? They change the nature of money itself. Enter the CBDC, central bank digital currency. Governments around the world are quietly piloting digital versions of their currency. On the surface, it's convenient. In reality, it is the ultimate programmable money. Imagine a world where your money has an expiration date to force you to spend and stimulate the economy. Imagine your ability to buy a house or even groceries being tied to a social credit score. If you protest the corporate landlords, your digital wallet is frozen. This is the final stage of the subscription future. You won't just rent your home, you will rent your very right to participate in society. Estis for KCLE, Rome Rebar. Historians call this the fourth turning. Every 80 to 100 years, a society reaches a crisis. We saw it in the Civil War. We saw it in the Great Depression. Look at the Roman Empire. Before it fell, they did exactly what we are doing now. They debased their currency. They expanded their military until they couldn't afford it. And the elite bought up all the farmland, turning free citizens into serfs. History doesn't repeat, but it certainly rhymes. We are living through the Romanization of America. The high-rises are our monuments, and the rental agreements are our chains. So, is there a way out? Or are we just passengers on a sinking ship? The first step is definancialization. The system wants you to stay in the digital loop. Stocks, credit scores, and debt. To opt out, you have to move toward real things. Skills, physical assets, community. The American dream was never about a white picket fence provided by a bank. It was about autonomy. It was about being beholden to no one. To reclaim that dream, we have to stop playing their game. We have to stop measuring our success by a credit score and start measuring it by our independence. AT Global Reset, a world with you cash. While you were distracted by mortgage rates, the very nature of privacy was being deleted. The housing trap is just the first layer. The ultimate goal is a cashless society. When cash dies, your freedom to transact anonymously dies with it. Every cup of coffee, every book you buy, every donation you make. It all becomes a data point for a centralized algorithm. In a world with no cash and no owned property, you aren't a citizen, you are a user. And users can be terminated with a single click. AI and the disruptine OFLA bar. White collar workers looky butt. There's a darker reason why they want you to be a renter forever. Artificial intelligence. In the 1950s, your grandfather's labor had high value. In 2026, human labor is becoming a liability. If AI can do the job of a lawyer, an accountant, or a coder, how will the masses pay that subscription for their housing? The elite know this. They aren't preparing for a future where you work. They are preparing for a future where you are universal basic income dependent. When the government pays your rent directly to a corporate landlord, who do you really belong to? Nathi PS Wachologwai OF N E O F E U D A L I S P E M. We like to think we've progressed, but look at the structure of our lives. A medieval serf worked 3 days for himself and 3 days for his lord. Today, after you pay income tax, property tax, sales tax, and 40% of your income in rent, you are working nearly 5 days a week just to pay the system. They've rebranded slavery as convenience. You have a smartphone and Netflix, but you have no equity. You have high-speed internet, but you have no land. You are the most entertained, yet most trapped generation in human history. AC silent or ON agriculture. It's not just houses. Look at the dirt. In the last decade, billionaires and investment firms have become the largest owners of private farmland in America. Why? Because he who controls the food controls the people. By squeezing the housing market and the food supply simultaneously, they are creating a double vice. You will work to eat, and you will work to sleep. The two most basic human needs have been weaponized against you. 8-8-day, greet awakening. 8-80-day, breaking point. Every financial bubble in history has one thing in common: it eventually pops. And every tyranny has an expiration date. The elite are betting that you will stay asleep, mesmerized by your scream. But they forgot one thing: human nature cannot be programmed. We are seeing a quiet revolution. People are moving out of megacities. They are learning trades. They are hoarding physical silver and gold. They are building parallel economies. The trap only works if you agree to be the bait. Once you stop valuing their credit score and start valuing self-reliance, their power evaporates. The question is no longer what will they do? The question is, what will you do? The credit system is only a Chinese experiment? Look closer at your banking app. Have you noticed the new carbon footprint trackers? This is the psychological priming for the next phase. Soon, your ability to get a mortgage or rent an apartment won't just depend on your bank balance. It will depend on your behavior. Did you buy too much meat? Did you drive too many miles? If the system can track your spending, it can dictate your lifestyle. The housing trap is just the cage. The social credit system is the lock on the door. ATDUKTN scam. You're training these serfs. To keep a population in a trap, you have to train them from birth. Our modern education system was designed by the industrialists of the early 1900s. People like Rockefeller, who famously said, "I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers." They saddled you with student debt before you even knew how a bank works. By the time you graduate at 22, you are already $40,000 in the hole. You aren't looking for freedom, you're looking for any job that pays the interest. You've been trained to be a perfect obedient renter before you ever earned your first paycheck. The escape from the CITS. The NU from the 5 minutes. But the elite are scared. Why? Because for the first time in a century, people are leaving the digital hives. The rise of remote work and Starlink has broken the monopoly of the cities. People are moving to the red zones. Areas where land is still cheap and the community is still real. This is the great decentralization. When you leave the city, you stop paying for their overpriced infrastructure, their inflated rents, and their high taxes. You are taking your labor and your wealth off the grid. And that is the one thing they cannot control. AT's commodity wars. AT return to hard assets of real, tangible as the dollar dies. The world is returning to what has worked for 5,000 years. Commodities. The next decade won't be about who has the most digits in a bank account. It will be about who has the most stuff. Copper, silver, gold, energy, and food. Countries like China and Russia have been holding gold for a reason. They know the paper game is over. If you want to survive the subscription future, you must become your own central bank. You can't hold it in your hand, you don't own it. See Sovereignty and Individual. Reclaiming Euro Sol Final Heavy Amount. Ultimately, this isn't a war over houses or money. It is a war for your sovereignty. They want you dependent on their money, their food, their housing, and their apps. Because a dependent person is easy to rule, but a sovereign individual, someone who owns their land, produces their own energy, and thinks for themselves. That person is dangerous to the status quo. The 100-year heist is nearing its finale. The system is shaking. You have a choice. You can be a victim of history, or you can be an architect of it. The American dream didn't die. It just moved. It moved from the suburbs to the hearts of those brave enough to live outside the trap. The time for watching is over. The time for doing has begun. Look at the people around you. They are asleep. You are not. Comment free if you've watched until the very end. This helps the algorithm find others who need to wake up. I am the independent financial historian. You've been warned. You've been educated. Now, go be free. The system doesn't just steal your money. It steals your contentment. Have you noticed that as soon as you get a raise, your expenses mysteriously rise to meet it? This is called hedonic adaptation. The system bombards you with 5,000 ads a day, convincing you that your self-worth is tied to your consumption. They want you to stay in debt, not because you're poor, but because you're unsatisfied. A man who is happy with what he has is a threat to the GDP. The housing trap works because they've convinced you that a status symbol is more important than equity. Monopoly OF information 5 minutes. Why didn't they teach you about Jekyll Island in school? Why isn't the Cantillon effect a headline on the evening news? because the same investment firms that own your neighborhood also own the newsrooms. In America, 6 corporations control 90% of what you see, hear, and read. They keep the conversation focused on left versus right, or blue versus red, so you never look up and see the top versus bottom. As long as you're fighting a culture war, you won't notice they're winning the class war. In Uruguay, at the Ultimate Korenkor, if money is time, then energy is life. Everything you consume, from the bread on your table to the lumber in your walls, is just transformed energy. The elite are currently moving to control the energy grid through net zero policies. By making energy expensive, they make independence impossible. If you don't own your energy source, you are essentially renting your life from the utility company. True homeownership in 2026 isn't just about a deed. It's about having the power to keep the lights on when the system decides to pull the plug. AT planned obsolescence, OFT immediate class. In the 20th century, we built things to last. Today, we build things to be replaced. This is planned obsolescence. But it's not just for iPhones. It's for people. The middle class was a temporary tool used to build the infrastructure of the elite. Now that the infrastructure is built and AI is here, the tool is being discarded. They are shrinking the middle class because they no longer need a large, wealthy population to run the machine. You aren't being pushed out of the market by accident. You are being phased out by design. Face final choice. ACE, the WOAMERICAS independent. Rural C, we are witnessing the birth of 2 distinct Americas. The first is the corporate America. A high-convenience, zero-ownership world where you rent your home, your car, and your data. It's clean, it's safe, and it's a prison. The second is the sovereign America, a world of hard work, physical assets, and tight-knit communities. It's difficult, it's risky, but it's free. The 100-year heist has reached its climax. The gate is closing. You can either walk through the path of convenience and give up your children's future, or you can take the path of resistance and build something they can't take away. History is watching. Your ancestors are watching. What will you tell your grandchildren when they ask, "Where were you when the American dream was stolen?"